What is up, fellow humans of the cardboard? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we are talking about a card I probably should have done like a whole video for, because this card is arguably, if not the best card in the set, one of the two best cards in the entire set of Lightning Overdrive. And that's high marks, especially for a common. It's going to be extremely easy to get your hands on, which is very good because this card is so insane for so many different decks. And so today I'm going to be talking about all the decks that, in my research, really looked interesting as far as, Scrap Raptor and where, I think he can be played in, what I think he really helps out. And it's just a fun topic because cards like these, we don't see them very often. He's not completely generic, but he's generic enough where his ability to push your engine to the next level helps multiple different decks. And we'll be taking a look at that today. So real quick, if you don't know what Scrap Raptor does, we'll zoom up here. Oh, good enough. Real quick, if you don't know what he does, he is a dinosaur tuner. It's very important, actually, because the best deck that can play him, that comes up huge in. You could target one monster you control, destroy it. Also, during your main phase's turn, you gain an additional normal summon for a scrap monster in addition to your normal summon. If this card is destroyed by the effect of a scrap card and sent to the graveyard, you can add a scrap factory or one non-tuner scrap monster from your deck to your hand. This card's amazing. Keep in mind, he can target any monster you control, and his destruction effect isn't by anything else, so he can just destroy himself to get an extra normal summon, then use his other effect to search you the card you want to get that additional normal summon for. Very, very good. This card is insane, but I figure I might as well go over it before we actually jump into things if you weren't, recently refreshed on what exactly he does. So the first thing, I guess, is just pure scraps. This deck actually has like some rogue regional tops or in local tops, so you'll find a couple deck profiles in the past year on it. Shout out to Asian Persuasion. I know he got one or two tops with this deck in the past year. This card's really cool. Well, Scrap Recycler is one of the better cards you can search off of Raptor. He just becomes another card that searches this, which is insane. We know this is a one card combo in a couple of different decks, but Scraps is definitely one as well. Scraps actually tend to want to go second more than first, which is really interesting. But with stuff like Scrap Factory, this deck actually plays through Disruption pretty well, and Raptor can search Factory or a monster. Depends on what your hand composition already looks like. You've also got stuff like Scrap Chimera. This is primarily one of the better cards you're searching as well in certain decks, not Recycler. Depends on what it is. But he can, when he's normal summon, he can just reborn a scrap tuner from grave. So if Raptor pops itself to search this, your additional normal summon goes into this, and he just reborns the Scrap Raptor again. There's two level 4s. One's a tuner, so you can either make a Synchro level 8, a rank 4, or link them off and continue with like a Scrap Wyvern play. It's up to you, but this is a very important card. Hopefully it gets a reprint soon. Hopefully it gets a reprint soon, I'll just say that. Then you have stuff like Scrap Golem. It's definitely the biggest brick in the deck, most likely, but it does allow you to extend a decent bit further. If you can summon him off of like Scrap Wyvern, he can then just reborn any scrap from grave, so just great, just awesome extender. Scrap Factory, like I said, when a scrap monster is destroyed by card effect, you can special summon another scrap from the deck, so Raptor pops himself to get another search and extra normal summon, and then Scrap Factory also extends you into another scrap monster, which is insane. So you could just summon like Golem off of this, and that's even more extendability. Scrapyard makes this so much more consistent. You're able to just search out Raptor. Very, very good. And then, of course, you have Wyvern, and you could even talk about Scrap Dragon and Scrap Twin Dragon and all that. But that's a little bit too in-depth. I just wanted to mention Scraps out the gate as a pure deck because I do think that is somewhat relevant. All right. For the best deck that you can play this stuff in, Scrap Raptor specifically, it's dinosaurs. Funny enough, the Scrap monsters actually are what they kind of seem like they're imitating after. So like Raptor is a dinosaur. Recycler obviously stays machine, but if you go back, Golem is rock and Chimera is beast. So whatever animal they're like kind of molded after is exactly the kind of type they are, which gives them a ton of synergy with dinosaurs. Dinosaurs generally are played as an OTK deck going second, but because of Scrap Raptor, we may see this deck evolve into a going first combo strategy. This card, Scrap Raptor, gives you the capability of setting up insane boards, and you have stuff like Miscellaneousaurus that can protect you through hand traps. This is a very scary strategy now. I think Scrap Raptor will probably get Miscellaneousaurus put back on the ban list or something to dinosaurs in some way, but this is one of the best versions of the deck. It's also, because it's a dinosaur, it gives itself access to allowing you making stuff like Ebelzar, Dolka, and Lagia, potentially both in the same turn. So you'll have the spell and trap negation and the monster negation, which is very, very good. I have all your bases covered there. And yeah, this deck's going to be real scary going forward. Next up, we have Orchest. Orchest is a cool one. We've already seen Scraps be played with Orchest as Recycler a lot of times is almost considered a better normal summon than Girsu for the deck. And it's also consistency, right? Like, Girsu's not searchable in Orchest to be a normal summon. So we have Recycler, Scrapyard, and Scrap Raptor now, which then gives you so much more consistent access to a good normal summon. And do they help you play through Disruption? Not necessarily. I guess you could try and play additional copies of Scrapyard or whatever to try and make that work. But I don't know. It still adds a nice level of power to the deck that it didn't have before. And it definitely is going to be scary. A lot of these things are going to be like must negates. I think that's the biggest thing with Scraps now, is like, if you show a Scrap Raptor to your opponent, that is like a must negate. You cannot let this resolve, because the combo is going to be devastating. You better have a board breaking card, or you better have a hand trap to not let that combo go through. But either way, you're in trouble, probably. All right, next up we have Machina Citadel. This card's kind of here to just represent Earth Machine as a whole. We've seen this deck kind of be thrown around in the Rogue category. But this deck is essentially like Infinitrack mixed with Machina, mixed with something else. What else are they mixed with? Machina, Infinitrack, Trains, Jesus. All Machines, by the way, actually has a good amount of graveyard synergy. I don't know exactly how perfect these mold together, but I mean, like, this deck is just machine good stuff. Well, Scraps are kind of just machine good stuff. You've got Recycler to send any other machine you might want. You've got just the fact that Scrap Raptor by itself already gets you so much value there. So I don't know. We'll see if and how they meld together, but I do think there probably is some synergy here. I didn't delve too far into it, but it just makes sense to me. Next up is Eldritch. This one's plain and simple. Listen, Eldritch is one of those strategies that doesn't use normal summon. So if you just have any powerful normal summon thing you can put with this, it can be pretty good. We've seen Zodiac here, we've seen Invoked here, we've seen Dogmatica here, we've seen so many different things here. The one that's most reminiscent to me with the Scrap engine is probably Orchest, which is one that's not as big as some of the others. But we've definitely seen it, right? An Orchest build where normal summoning Girsu is very similar to Scrap Raptor, in my opinion. They feel kind of similar, at least, in that you're going to do a decent little combo and you're going to get a ton of value out of it. And then supported with the Eldritch traps and what they bring to the table, it's going to be a pretty good strategy. So that's pretty much it. Just a deck that doesn't use normal summon. Same thing here with the Generator deck. We saw the exact same thing. We saw Orchest be, well, at least Girsu, with some of like the World Legacy stuff, doing one of some of those combos to make like Calamities and stuff. We don't have access to that now, but that kind of even makes Scrap Raptor even more valid in a strategy like this, because he just kind of that's right. The Girsu stuff isn't even really a thing anymore because the payoff isn't there without Calamity. So now we can rely on something like Scrap Raptor, just get to some insane boards, multiple disruptions, and put some power behind the control aspect of boss stage. Really good. Next up, this one could have been moved up a little bit because there's actually synergy here. Listen, I know Spirals are in a tough spot because Master Plan is gone, and rightfully so. Not once per turn, brutal. We still have Quick Fix, right? Quick Fix is still an insane card. Scrap Recycler gets him to grave. Same thing with your drones. So there is still some synergy here, and I don't think it can be completely ignored. Now, do I think this deck is going to become competitive again? Probably not, but this deck does have some unique win conditions. It does have a unique style of play that's very strong. Lets you look at what your opponent's playing, what their next draw is going to be, right? So there are some crazy bonuses to playing a deck like this specifically. And I do think the Scrap Engine, which was played in this prior, keep in mind, January of, what is that, 2020? We saw this deck be meta with like Shaddolls and others, and yeah, Invoke Shaddolls and what, Salamangrates, I guess, whatever was really good at that time. And no master plan. That's what it comes down to, right? There's no master plan, but I do still think there are going to be plays here, and scraps are so good on their own. Normal Scrap Raptor gives you a ton of value in and of itself, even if you're not going to like end up going into another engine. So works out. Just wanted to mention that one. And the last thing I wanted to mention here is Spring-ins. Spring-ins really haven't seen much play at all, but that's probably a large part due to the fact that we're getting like 4 Spring-ins cards straight up in Lightning Overdrive in a week. So yeah, the deck really hasn't had enough support yet. This next wave will definitely give us a chance to see if it can play at all. It's one of those weird decks that's like more defensive. It's more about like dodging your opponent and maintaining its resources, slowly whittling down your opponent, rather than like setting up a bunch of negates and saying you can't play. So we'll see. Maybe if the scraps are splashed in there, the scraps will give it the oomph that it doesn't have on its own. But also, all the Spring-ins have effects in grave. So Recycler, just getting you free dumps on Spring-in monsters, can actually be pretty good. I'm really curious about this one. Spring-ins are one of the archetypes I've been most curious about, but I don't know. It still seems like a fringe one. Pure Spring-ins might be better. We're just going to have to see. It's machine archetype though, and it doesn't use its normal summon a lot of the time. It's important to note. And maybe not a lot of the time, but a decent amount of the time, because of their field spell. It's just like plop a free Exia on the field. Woo! And that works. So yeah, that's my list for everything that I think Scrap Raptor is like specifically really, really interesting in and is really going to buff up. Of course, I might not have hit everything. I just did some quick research on this, went around and looked at all the machine stuff. Maybe there are a couple things I missed that you think are better, if you specifically know those decks better than I do. So let me know in the comment section down below if there's anything I missed here that I should know about, want to be aware of, and how Scrap Raptor can actually push them to the next level. But this is everything I have today, guys. Let me know in the comment section down below that. Anything I missed, but also what are you most excited to splash Scrap Raptor in? There's so many different options. Even if you don't plan on playing one of these decks, you probably should just grab Scrap Raptor because it's a common. I know Scrap Yard is really expensive right now, and I know Scrap Chimera is really expensive right now because they only have one printing, but I have to assume that Konami will try and squeeze them in somewhere. That is just so much free money to make a reprint there, that they have to do that sooner rather than later. So hopefully they do that, and then, you know, those cards will come down and the whole entire engine will be pretty damn affordable. So that's going to do it from here today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this in the future. I cannot wait for Lightning Overdrive. I literally have like 10 deck profiles lined up pretty much once I get my hands on some of those cards. And it's going to be great. We also have multiple other sets this month, which are really cool as well. And a ton of reveals coming as well. So stay tuned for that. I will catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.